welcome. Okay, before we get started, I can see we've got lots of people involved, but we can't see your faces. If there's some reason why we can't see your face, that's fine, but it'd be really nice if you could activate your cameras so we could see who's who and put names to faces. That would be lovely. But if for whatever reason you don't want to, that's okay. I think everybody's on mute as well, which is great. We are going to be using the comments section, but you'll just need yourself a pen and paper and then fingers on buttons for responding to any questions or reflections that we ask for you today. We've got a double whammy today, so me and Liz usually do our training in the same room, but obviously with COVID there's been social distancing, but the other reason for us being in separate places is because we have got, obviously I have really dodgy internet, which seems to just go off whenever it feels like it. But then also Liz has a dodgy laptop, which seems to go off whenever it feels like it. So if for whatever reason you lose one of us, be rest assured that the other one will take over safely to carry on. So I'm going to share my screen with you and we can get cracking. Right, so hopefully you are able to see my screen. Can you just give me a little thumbs up if you're all okay, can see? Wonderful, that's great. So just a bit of a background really as to who myself and Liz are. We are both primary teachers. I taught for 15 years full-time, Liz was 10 years. My career started over at a school in Bury, working there for 9 years, and I was the Senko there for 7 in Key Stage 2. It was a 2-form entry school, so quite a demanding school in terms of its location, its demographics, and I had a Key Stage 2 Senko role because of the needs of the children were so great. I left there and went to work at Greenmount Primary School, which is like the polarised, different end of the spectrum really at Greenmount, and that's where I met Liz. And it was while we were there that we were asked as middle leaders to look at growth mindset. And we'll tell you a little bit more about how Grow Your Mindset came about in a minute. From there, I moved a bit closer to home. You know how it is. You have your children. You want to be a bit closer to home. So I moved over to the dark side, as it was known in our area, because it was a completely different authority that I'd not worked for. And I worked in a very similar catchment area to Heaton Park, so high special needs, high free school meals, high EAL, and I was year 4 teacher there, and I went there with a passion again, still carrying on the growth mindset work that I started at Heaton Park, but also our collaborative learning as well that I'm really passionate about as well. So that's just sort of a bit of a background as to my history. Liz, do you want to tell people about yours?
Yeah, I'm not like Gemma. I didn't move around as much. So I started teaching. I did 14 years in corporate business before I went into teaching. So I was a mature student. So when I graduated, I started working at Greenmount Primary, and that is where obviously I met Gemma. I was Key Stage 1 for the whole 10 years that I was teaching. And yeah, became very passionate about developing collaborative learning because of Gemma's inspirational influence. And then obviously leading as middle leaders, growth mindset set us on a different path and a different journey. Okay.
So Grow Your Mindset came about through, like I said, at Greenmount Primary School, where the head had noticed a need for the children in terms of their resilience levels. Although it was this leafy green suburb, and children generally conformed to the rules and did what you asked, they would give up quite easily, and if anything was too challenging, they would ask for help immediately before having a real good look at it. So resilience was pretty low. They didn't want to take a risk. They wanted to stay in their comfort zone, and it was all about look where I am in the pecking order, look where I am in terms of intelligence. That was really important to the children in our school. So the head teacher asked us to look at a theory called habits of mind. And if any of you have heard of that, that's a theory developed by Art Costa, an American psychologist. But when we started looking at habits of mind, we realized really quickly that actually growth mindset underpinned the habits of mind as well. So that's where our journey began. And as you do, we go onto a course, we booked ourselves onto a course with an international speaker called Jackie Beer. If you've read her book, Grow, you'll understand how inspirational she is. If you haven't, it's definitely well worth a read. So she's called Jackie Beer, and she was a former high school head teacher, but has actually now left that position and now does coaching and keynote speeches all across the world based upon growth mindset. And we'd seen her and we were totally inspired. And if you've been on a really good course, you know what it is like. You run back to your classroom and you start implementing things straight away. And in some ways, that was kind of the sticking point for us, and that realization that actually we've gone about this all the wrong way, because the journey doesn't start with the children. The journey actually starts with us role modeling. We can tell the children to develop a growth mindset as much as possible, but actually, unless we are walking the walk and talking the talk ourselves, it's not going to happen. So it was a realization that we needed to be on the journey, and we're going to touch more on that as we go through. So we were sat in the pub one day, as you do. We were drinking Coke, Diet Coke, and just thought, you know what, people are really interested in what we're doing. We'd done staff meetings, we've been to a few different schools that were interested in what we'd done in our classrooms, and we thought, let's take a risk ourselves and let's give this a shot. So here we are, two years later, been nominated for a number of awards. We're getting our training accredited as well this year, and we've started writing children's stories. So lots of things have happened, which is brilliant, but we're on a really great journey and enjoying ourselves as well. Today, really, in this next hour and a half, is not about us telling you what you're not doing right. It's actually about looking at what we're all doing well. There might be a few ouch moments in here where you might think, oh yeah, I've done that, and actually we're pointing out something to you that we can change and make better. But ultimately what we want us to look at are things that we are doing at the moment, and how can we do them better. So that's our sort of overview of today. So we're going to be looking at misconceptions, we're going to be looking at the theory of growth mindset. Just out of interest, actually, if you can pop into the comments for me where your knowledge is of growth mindset. Have you actually started it at school already? Have you just started it? Have you just got a display up? Have you been doing something in the past? Have you never looked at it before? What's your sort of background in terms of growth mindset at the moment? So if you can just pop a little comment into the chat for me, we'll just have a little look before we move on. Let's have a look. Okay, so people mentioning about displays. Anything else? Okay, so people really at the start of their journey as well. Yeah, Jo Bowler with she focuses a lot on maths and the growth mindset through maths. Okay, so we've got a huge range, which is fab. Okay, right. I'm sure you're going to find lots of these bits and pieces really useful. It sounds like some of you have dipped your toe and are just wanting some more information. Some of you are at the beginning of your journey. So there's definitely going to be something in here for you to have a look at. But what we thought we'd do is just share with you a little video of the kind of things that me and Liz get up to in our schools. Okay, so over to you, Liz.
Okie dokie. Right then. So what we're going to do, it's really nice actually that some of you are really curious and inquisitive and have little knowledge, because what we want to do is build up your knowledge a little bit. So we're going to give some background information. We're going to lead you on a little bit of a journey for yourselves to raise your own awareness, but also then deal with some of the myths and misconceptions that we've spotted since we've been developing this since 2016. So if you think about where it all came from, I've got Carol's book here. Okay, so this was published in 2017. But if you think about mindset, every single human being on the planet has a mindset. Okay, so that way of thinking that determines your beliefs, your behaviours, your outlook and your mental attitude. So your mindset is moulded from birth. Okay, and it's moulded through your main influences around you at the time. So that's family, friends, peer, friendship groups, that sort of thing, but also moulded through your life experiences. So mindset have always been there. It's not something that Carol Dweck has created, but what she has done over her 30 years of research in mindset is coined the term fixed and growth mindset. And by doing that, what she did for us, especially as teachers, but also as adult learners, Gemma, because she coined fixed and growth mindset, she created clarity. And she also created direction for us to become more self-aware as adults of our own mindset. Okay, and it was also her research and her theory and principles that made us realise the impact that our mindset was having on our colleagues around us, but more importantly as well, the children in our classes. Okay, so that's where we said, Gemma mentioned earlier about it doesn't start with the children, it has to start with us as adults, and that's what we recognise very early on in our journey. Okay, so what we want you to do is have a little think about your school at the moment, and we know the landscape is really different now. At the moment we're getting used to lots of different things, but just think about the children in your school and the staff that you have around you, and just have a look at these phrases that we bring up, and I want you to think if these resonate with you. Okay, so do your children or staff lack self-belief? Do any of them fear making mistakes? Do they prefer to stay in their comfort zone, so not taking responsible risks? Do they see feedback as a personal criticism? Okay. Do they seek perfectionism? And do they find it difficult to manage emotions? Okay, so all these are examples as adults and children of when we experience what we call a fixed mindset trigger or a mindset moment. And mindset these are some of the things, the actions, the behaviours that might come out to play. Okay, and it says at the bottom here that growth mindset is foundation for learning. And that is something that we have developed in our classrooms and seen a big impact quite quickly when we've started to develop our own journey, but the journey of the children as well. It does become a foundation for you to build on, and whatever you build on, that foundation becomes more. That foundation cannot solely be created by the children on their own. It has to begin with the adults, because it's the children who come into contact with the adults. And as adults, we are one of the main influences of the children in our school, and therefore we impact on the mindset of our children. Okay, so the journey is holistic and a collaborative approach. So what we want you to do is, if some of that is resonating with you as an individual now, or as within your colleagues or children in your class, it's about taking this on a journey of growth. Okay, it's not about accepting these as being who we are and that this is it. It's about taking it on a journey and becoming more aware. And that's what we want to do with you today. We're introducing you to that journey. Okay, so we're going to show you some of the most common, I would say, character traits, behaviours and actions that we have when we have a fixed mindset. And some of these might resonate with you. Definitely at the beginning of my journey, I had two main, I would say, triggers that we can see on here. One of them was avoiding challenge. The other one was feeling threatened by other people's success. Okay, so I used to feel if people around me were really achieving, that I could see the gap between me and them getting bigger. That would mean having to put lots more effort to catch up, and often that might be a challenge. Okay, and you can see through these characteristics that if we default to our fixed mindset with our instinctive behaviour, what we would normally do, we're sort of like creating a self-defeating identity, okay, and we become trapped by the limited beliefs that we have ourselves. And if this becomes our default setting, what we're actually doing is prohibiting growth. So have a little think about these for yourself. And what we don't want you to do is to internalise our fixed mindset as a bad thing. And that's one of the big misconceptions that we're going to talk about later on. Okay, this is about you connecting with your mindset, becoming more aware of your triggers when we resonate with a fixed, and then taking those to become more growth orientated. Okay, because you will have children in your classes that, if we can go to the next one, Jen.
Sorry.
Oh, all right. Jan, I could do with an action, couldn't I?
Go on.
So I want you to imagine the children in your school. If you look at what we've got on the screen here, whatever you feed will grow. So we've got worry or confidence, doubt or belief, fear or faith. So we've got elements of a fixed mindset there with worry, doubt and fear. Okay, so imagine the children in your school or the colleagues who might at the moment have that attitude of what you see is what you get. So this is who I am, and some things I can do really easily, and some things I'll just never be able to do them. No matter what I try, I will never be able to achieve in that area. So when faced with the challenge, they're not going to put themselves forward for that challenge, because why would they do that to then maybe fail at the challenge or make mistakes with that challenge? And that would just reinforce that inner belief that they already have of themselves, but it would also create judgment from other people. And our fixed mindset is a very judgmental mindset. We become very critical ourselves, hence the negative self-talk, but we also fear judgment from other people. And we're finding as we travel around the Northwest, working with teachers and working with children, that being judged by other people is a massive area for individuals at the moment. Okay, and Gemma's going to talk about the reasons why we feel that in a little while. So you might have also people in this area that whatever's hard for them today will be hard for them tomorrow. And therefore they steer away from difficulty. They begin to make excuses, and that becomes an instinctive response over time. It becomes a habit for them. Okay. And what else we've noticed about our fixed mindset is that very often when you're faced with a task that you're doing for the first time, a lot of people, when they default to their fixed, expect to have the whole skill set before they start. Okay, so unless they've got the skills to be able to do it and achieve it from the first attempt, then they back off from it. Okay, so it's almost like seeking that perfectionism there. Okay, they want it to be spot on first time, or else would they be judged by other people? Will people laugh at them if they make mistakes, and so on? And this is all about having a choice. So this is our fixed mindset that we all have. And what we want to do is start to become more growth orientated. Okay, so we're going to show you now the difference between the two. So the growth side is pretty much a flip opposite of what you saw on the fixed. Okay, so understanding the choices that we have between our fixed and our growth mindset is where that journey starts. So rather than accepting your fixed when it comes knocking, and almost like, well, this is the way I am. And I have family members who they're in the 40s and the 50s, and we accept them because that's the way they are. So they react in a certain way, but that's the way they are, so that's okay. it's about thinking, do you know what, this is holding me back, this is not allowing me to grow, and taking the reins on that and moving forward with it. Okay, so when we invite ourselves, and it's about inviting yourself to become more growth orientated, and what you'll see happening is your perception changes, your thinking starts to change, which ultimately results in your behaviours changing, your language changing, and your actions changing as well. Okay, so your whole attitude to learning, as you begin to develop a growth mindset, becomes totally different. And that is why we say growth mindset is the foundation for learning. So whereas previously one of my fixed mindset triggers was to feel threatened by other people, actually when you flip that and become more inspired by other people, so, oh, they're really good at that, I'll never be like that, and have that sort of attitude. Actually, they're really good at that, I want to be like that, how am I going to get there? And you change your thinking to nudge yourself to become more growth orientated, rather than defining yourself as a person, which is what our fixed mindset does. So with our growth mindset, we understand that our abilities can be developed, and therefore we're not intimidated by failure. We are comfortable with making mistakes, and setbacks are a challenge, but challenge is good, because we know that that is a process of learning. So through embracing challenge, seeking feedback, learning from our mistakes, putting in hard work, trying different strategies, we know that that will all have an outcome of growth, but it will take time to do. Learning doesn't happen quickly. And very often as a teacher, I was in my class who, if they didn't understand something straight away, or they could see their friend getting it and they couldn't, they just thought they would never be able to do it. Okay, so it was very much based on intelligence, and that's your fixed mindset. Fixed mindset is very much about intelligence. Growth mindset is about the processes of learning, not just the outcome at the end, i.e. test result or exam result or so on. Okay, so when you start this journey for yourself, but also for when you start to implement it, until when you've got that foundation with your staff, your default setting becomes more growth orientated. So rather than having, next one, Jen. So I love this quote. It's one of my favourites personally. Life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. Okay, so it's with a growth mindset, you have that sort of attitude or thought process where who I am today is going to be a former shadow of who I'm going to be next week, next month, next year. Okay, and the focus isn't about your intelligence or ranking yourself within a classroom. It's about the process of learning, but more importantly, it's about just being the best version of yourself. So it's taken away the comparing yourself to other people and that judgmental feel that a fixed mindset can create, and being the best version of you, and knowing that that will then create an intrinsic motivation to want to succeed. Okay, and it's knowing that you can't do lots of things, and that's absolutely fine. I can't do everything I come across, but I want to know how to do it, and that's the difference. It's not capping your abilities. I can't do it and that's it. It's about I can't do it, but I want to know how to do it, and that's what takes you on that growth journey. Okay.
So let's get connected with our mindset a little bit. So you'll be able to see on here some different scenarios to do with mindset. Okay, some of them are what Liz described as fixed. Some of them are as what Liz described as growth. So what we want you to do is just have a read through them and then make a note somewhere as to what you think they are. So for example, number 1, you might put that down as fixed. Okay, number 2, growth, whatever you think. So just go through those numbers. I'll give you a couple of minutes to have a look, have a read, and then we'll have a look at what you've come up with. Okie dokie. So I'm going to ask for your verbal responses to these, actually. Okay. So it's with your brave feet on, going through what's the fixed mindset ones. Okay. So that's what I've brought up, is the fixed mindset scenarios. But what I'm looking for from you is, can you explain why? Okay, so what is it that's being triggered here? What is the behavior that's been demonstrated that tells you that this is a fixed mindset person? So this one's about the colleague. So you've worked together for some time, you go for the same promotion, you're not chosen for the job, and you act unprofessionally towards your colleague. So that's a fixed mindset. But can somebody shout out and explain to us why? I take that as a no.
See it as a personal criticism, and it's difficult to manage emotions.
Yeah, so the difficulty in managing emotions, so that acting unprofessionally, so we get that idea that maybe they're quite angry or quite jealous. Yeah, anything else? Anyone want to contribute anything else?
It's to do with seeing the difference between yourself and other people and comparing yourself to someone else's successes and seeing them as a threat.
Yes, so like Liz mentioned before, being threatened by other people's success. So obviously there's somebody else who has got the job, and you're now seeing that as a gap, the difference between you and your colleague, in terms of that they must be better than you are. So feeling threatened by that as well. In terms of if we were to try and flip this and try and encourage this person to be more growth, has anyone got any suggestions in terms of what you might advise them to do?
They could go and find out perhaps why they didn't get the job.
Brilliant, Alice. So we're going to go and have a chat, get some feedback from whoever it was that interviewed us, find out what it is, what are the reasons behind us not getting the job, because those are all things that we can then work on for next time. Anything else that you might advise people to do?
It would also be useful for you to talk to that colleague that they were unprofessional towards, and maybe just have a chat with them about what did they say in the interview, what experiences did they have that helped them to get the role.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. So just going to have a chat with that person that did get the role. If you want to be in that role and learn from them, go and find out what it is that maybe you've missed, or how you can develop yourself to get into that role yourself, and not see it as a stopping point. That was an opportunity to learn from and then go for again next time, because promotions come and go, don't they? So it's about not missing that opportunity next time. Okay, the next one is, you've got an opportunity to work in a new department at work. You decide to forego the move because you feel the change would be too much. Ooh, and if you're like me, when I was in Key Stage 2 and asked to go into Key Stage 1, wow, that's a shocker, isn't it? So yeah, this the new department. So why not? Why is this a fixed mindset?
But it's fear of change, isn't it?
Yeah, so again, that fear of change. So if you remember as well that Liz mentioned before about how sometimes we expect to know it all before we go there as well. So, you know, the fear of the difference between a department can be quite huge, or feel quite huge sometimes. There's lots more to learn. You know, when I went into Key Stage 1, I didn't know that the Year 2s didn't know what a meter stick was. And when we started learning about measurements, so it's all a learning curve, isn't it? We don't know everything at once. So, yeah, we sometimes say no because we're unsure of our own abilities. Anything else?
You're avoiding challenges, new challenges.
Yeah, we'd just rather stay in our comfort zone. We know what we're doing in this class. We know what we're doing in this year group and this department. So we're going to stick here rather than challenge ourselves and push ourselves to do something else. Thank you, Alice. And this is an interesting one, because sometimes people say to us, yeah, but Gemma, you know, it's just not the right time for me at the moment. You know, something's going on at home or whatever it is. And those things come about, don't they? And we understand that. But sometimes that can also be used as a bit of an excuse as well. Oh, I'm too busy. I haven't got enough time, or, you know, those things come into it. So try not to make it into an excuse, and use it again as an opportunity. And sometimes you try things and you think, actually, that's not for me, don't you? And that's fine. But unless we have a go at these things, we're never going to know. We might step in there and might absolutely love it. Who knows? Next one we've got is the surveys revealed you need to make changes in your setting. These changes don't fit in with the development plan, therefore they are ignored. So why has that gone into fixed?
This is thinking that you already know everything that there is to know, thinking that you're already the expert and you don't want to take advice.
I love this one because they've sent a survey out, haven't they, asking for feedback, and then actually just ignored what it said. It's almost been like a tick box exercise, hasn't it? So we've sent the survey out, we've done that, tick, done for another year, but it doesn't really matter what it says, because like you say, we know everything already. Any other reasons?
Perhaps the fear factor.
There might be some uncomfortable things on that survey, might there, Alex, that have been revealed to you that you may not have been aware of, and adapting to that. Again, we mentioned about change as well, that fear of change. That we're not doing something right, and we need to make changes. Yeah, it could be a fear of that, maybe feeling, oh gosh, maybe they think we're not doing a very good job because we've had that feedback. And I think there the bit about it being ignored is quite detrimental as well. We all know we get feedback, and sometimes the feedback is valuable, but maybe it's not a priority at that time because there's other pressing things going on. But I think with that word there, ignored, it feels very impersonal, doesn't it? And actually that we don't really care, which is what a survey should be about working together with those people on the outside and taking that collaborative approach. Okay, next one. You've always wanted to be a successful dancer. I'm sure there's lots of you in the room that have wanted that, but your mum has 2 left feet, so you knew you would never stand a chance. So why has that gone into fixed?
It's the idea of I can't mindset rather than I can.
Yep, so straight away they've made the judgment before they've even tried that they can't do it. Any other reason?
Not wanting to look like a failure if you try to do it and fail.
So there could be an element of fear there, couldn't there? Making mistakes. We're not going to go into the room and be like, is it Osimabuto? Or did I say that right? I'm not sure. The one of Strictly. Are we going to go into the room and be like that? Probably not, no. And we're also making that judgment based upon somebody else's experience. Okay, it's our mum, who we're genetically connected to. And do you ever get that at a parents' evening where you're trying to talk to a parent about a subject, just as an example with it being maths, it always seems to be maths, and they say, oh, well, I was never good at that either. And it's almost like that excuse then, well, I was never good, so I'm not expecting my child to be very good at it. And actually, that's not the case. We're born as a blank canvas. What it tends to happen is the beliefs of the parent end up being the beliefs of the child, not the capability and the potential. It's the belief that's instilled. And like Liz said before, it then becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you want to be a good dancer, we have to go through the lessons and the practice and the dedication in order for us to get there. We're not just going to walk into a room and expect it to happen. What about this one? Talented football player. You've won lots of trophies, extra training sessions are coming up, but we're not attending this because we've got all the skills we need already. So why is this one cropped up as fixed?
They're not willing to develop themselves.
They're not willing to develop themselves. They just see themselves as being at the top of their game already. Yeah, good. Anything else? They've got that fixed mindset belief that they have now achieved the best that they can achieve. And with a growth mindset, it's that understanding that everything can be developed. The scale is not 0 to 10. The scale is to infinity and beyond, as in Toy Story. It is limitless, okay, in terms of how we can develop as a person. You know, and we talk to children quite a lot about this type of belief, because if we imagine all the football players that we see in the Premier League, and I know David won't mind because he won't say anything, but the City players, Manchester City players, obviously, like your Aguero, they turn up at training every day because they've got more to learn. They don't just stay at home. Even though they are amazing players, they've still got more to learn. And also with a growth mindset, it's that understanding that I have skills to share with other people. I'm not going to keep them to myself, okay? Because that's where we get this intelligence ranking coming in. So it's about being collaborative as well. So I know this, I'm going to share this with you. What can you help me with, and how can you help me develop? So it's those sharing of skills as well that are really important. Okay, and often we talk about that iceberg illusion, don't we? What we see is the successful football player, but actually what's going on underneath the iceberg is lots of practice, determination, maybe sacrificing, going out and meeting up with their friends, maybe sacrificing other bits and pieces, making mistakes as well. That's what we see, we don't see, and that happens during the week. What we see is the match on a Saturday or a Sunday, or what day is it today? Wednesday, as it is happening in my sitting room at the moment. The boys are all watching football. So yeah, it's about still continuous development. So what I want us to move on to is to why it is so important. And this is great for the scientific buffs, and it's also great for anyone in SLT as well, because SLT likes to see statistics as well. But there's some other bits and pieces for us to look at. So the first one that I want us to look at is the impact on mental health. And I don't really know what your experience is in school, but for me as a class teacher, mental health and mental illness symptoms were becoming more and more prevalent in the classroom as I went through my career. In my class, my last class was a year 4 class, and as I mentioned, it was in quite a high deprivation area. But having said that, in the class of 32, a third of them had been diverted to CAMS, or referred to CAMS, I should say. So that's the Child Adolescent Mental Health Service. So nearly 10 children in my class have been referred to that system. And as we know, that system is under increased pressure. And only 3 of them were deemed serious enough to receive treatment from them. The other 7 were referred back to school for school to deal with and cope with. And we've got these children in our classroom. We've had conversations with many a teacher who discuss about reception children self-harming. In my daughter's school, she's a high school student, that in just this year alone, this academic year, and this is to say we've not even done a full one because they've been in lockdown, there's been 2 suicides, 1 successful suicide, if you can call it a success, 1 suicide, and then another suicide attempt in a high school, which is worrying. That's just up the road. You know, these things are happening on our doorstep. And also with COVID-19, obviously mental health and mental illness has been brought up a lot on the news, and that worry and angst about our children. What I do find interesting is that social media is brilliant, because social media has that ability to share things with you, either to shock or you know, and to inform. And there was one comment on social media that was really interesting this week, that was highlighting the impact that COVID-19 had on our school children, and the need for us to really work on it when we go back into the classroom full time in September. And a comment from a deputy head teacher was, we just need to get back to doing what we normally do, the children are fine. And that kind of shocked me a little bit, because that was a blanket statement, but also children are very resilient. I've got, you know, 2 children myself, and I know they're quite resilient, but not everybody is resilient. And also what I know about my children is what's on the outside is not what is always on the inside. And how many times does somebody say to you, how are you? And you say, I'm fine. And children do exactly the same thing. So I think it's really hard for us to say children are fine, we just need to go back to normal, and take that as you know, given. I do think that this experience will have impacted a lot of children, not all children. Some will have coped really well, but we can't blanket everyone under the same brush. I think there will be a lot of children that will have struggled, as teachers have also struggled as well. However, the good news is that intervention of growth mindset actually reduces symptoms of anxiety and depression, and we will have a look at those statistics in a minute. I'm no mental health expert, and I don't really, well, I have a theory as to why I think these statistics are so high. We've obviously got social media, and like I say, we spend a lot of our time on social media. We can access information at the press of a button, and we're open to a lot of judgment from a lot of people who can freely express themselves, whereas face-to-face is a lot more difficult. And I think people find it much easier to say what they think online, and we become quite a judgmental society. We also have this picture of perfect lives being thrown in our faces, you know, the prettiest person or the most richest person, and the expectation of what is a success and what is beautiful is in our faces all the time. Like I said, my daughter's 14, but in her first year of high school, at the age of 11, her peers, the people that she's been around, hanging around with since primary school, were already talking about waxing her eyebrows because they weren't quite how they should be. She's got the most amazing eyebrows. I plucked mine a bit too much in the 90s and have to paint them on, but my daughter has got the most amazing eyebrows, and it just shows you what sort of pressure these children are under at such a young age, the age of 11. Luckily, she's quite she's got quite a strong character, and she's really not bothered about her eyebrows. The other thing that I think has changed is parenting. Our parenting is very different from when I was younger. I would just go outside, play with my friends. Mum never really asked me who I was playing with. She wouldn't really know if I was going into anybody's house. She just sort of knew the area I was in, which is just at the back of our house where I grew up. Obviously no phones. I didn't have a watch. I just knew either before it went dark I had to be in, or Mum would shout out the back window, "Tea's ready," and that was the call to go in. So, and that's not because she just didn't love me, very far from it, but it was a very different time then. Now, again, 14-year-old daughter, have you got your mobile phone? Is it switched on? Where are you going? Who are you going with? What time are you going to be back? And if I text you, if you don't respond in the next 2 minutes, I'm going to drive down there and come and get you. We put those sorts of pressures on our children. And again, out of love, we're doing these things to protect them, but actually is that lack of freedom and lack of responsibility that they can take upon themselves because we protect them so much, is that stopping them from developing in their mental health as well. We've also got the Amazon effect, or what I like to call the Amazon effect. That idea of everything is now, 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 rush, rush, rush. So if I want a book, I go on Amazon, it arrives the next day. I want a pizza, Just Eat, it arrives within an hour. Everything's very, very fast paced. Everything that we do is 100 miles an hour. And sometimes children get frustrated, and adults do too, when we don't get things straight away. Like with learning, I bet you can think of a couple of children in your classroom that when they don't understand something, they get very frustrated, or maybe they show it through a different range of emotions. Maybe they get upset or anxious. But children want to know straight away. They want it now, rather than understanding that that learning takes time and the brain is trying to create neural pathways. And that's quite a challenge. And then finally, the other thing that I think has impacted on mental health is actually the education system itself. And one of the reasons why I stepped away, our education system is based upon figures. How many points progress is this child making? Or not even this child anymore, they're becoming numbers. You know, we've got Ofsted knocking at the door as well, and hung over our heads for the 3 years leading up to that inspection as well. So there's a big pressure there. Our A-level results have to be the best they can be. We have to be getting A's and B's if we want to go and stand a chance at getting into university. It wasn't like that when I was younger. Did my A-level results, were the A's and B's? No, they weren't. Did that make me a better teacher or a worse teacher because I didn't get those A's and B's? I like to think not. But those curriculum results are, you know, really important these days to children in order for them to reach and have those opportunities of college and university, and even job prospects. Getting a degree to get a job as well is really important these days. So lots of different reasons as to why I think there's a rise in mental health. So this is the good news, okay? So this is for SLT because they want things to have a measurable impact. But this was a study conducted by Schleider and Weiss, who were researchers who worked alongside Dweck and her research into a very small intervention where they worked with 1,500 students over a period of time, and it was a matter of a couple of sessions a week, and displayed anxiety and depressive symptoms. The intervention was all about understanding a growth mindset, looking at what it actually meant to have this mindset. But as you can clearly see, the results from the mindset intervention show a downward curve in terms of the depressive symptoms that were shown. What's really interesting about this intervention is that this is lasting results. So even when they came back and visited these students 9 months after the intervention had taken place, these students were still displaying considerably less depressive symptoms than their control intervention peers. And I just think this was a small group of students, this was for a small amount of time, and I just think if we were to imagine a whole school community taking this on, every single class trying to develop growth-orientated students, that the impact on their mental health later in life, because most symptoms start to develop around the age of 14, that we're onto a winning leg here. We're giving them a really good start in terms of coping with those symptoms, because what we're not doing is getting rid of anxiety and depression and stress. Those are natural emotions that every individual will feel at some point, but what we are giving them is the tools to deal with those emotions a lot better. Okay. Now this one is a slightly different one, and I just want you to take a look at this graph, and this is where I'm going to ask you to type into the comments now. So just looking at the graph and the information that you've got there, what does this graph tell me about growth mindset? So just bob in what you think this graph tells me. Okay, so we've got maths grades are obviously increasing, and then actually the grades with the control group are decreasing, so showing that we've got this positive effect on standardized testing, and that we've got people that have now got this I can do it attitude, so that obviously they're now believing in themselves. We've got this I can't do it yet maybe attitude, but I'm going to give it a try. Maybe that's what's going on here. It's really interesting because when I looked at this graph initially, my immediate thought was like you, that these children's math grades have gone up because they've now got an understanding of what growth mindset is. They've had this intervention, they've now got a growth mindset understanding and a growth mindset knowledge, and because of that, they've now approached maths in a different way. But what's really interesting is actually the piece of research that was done is not actually about the children, it's actually about the teachers. And the researchers were interested in the impact and the interaction, the behaviour and the language that we as educators have on the children. So there was not a mention of growth mindset. There wasn't this imparting of knowledge of growth mindset. It was more about how the teachers behaved, and the growth mindset teachers that used language correctly and whether they behaved in a certain way, that's what made the difference to these children in terms of their results. And this goes back to what Liz was saying before. Whether we like it or not, you are impacting on mindset right now. Every day you go into your classroom and teach, you are impacting on the mindset of the children in your classroom. We impact on the children's mindset by thinking about groups. We may put them into groups. We may think about the expectations that we have for them. And I know as a teacher, we would spend a long time at the beginning of the year going down the list, going, yep, they'll get 2 points progress. Yep, they will. Oh gosh, no, I don't think they will. And actually what we're doing there is we're looking at these children with a fixed mindset of intelligence. Okay, so it's about breaking that down and closing the achievement gap, because that's what we can do with a growth mindset attitude ourselves in our classroom, which is quite powerful. So what we have got is, because of the way the teacher was, and because the teacher was on a journey of growth mindset, that actually the children in the maths growth intervention were not scared of making mistakes anymore. They felt safe in the environment that they were in, that they weren't going to be judged or put in intelligence order or ranked or grouped, that their teacher believed that they had the potential to achieve as much as everybody else in that group. It was a collaborative approach, working together, and they were responding to the feedback that their teacher was giving them, and that feedback being delivered in a growth-orientated way. So the impact on their results was down to the interaction with the teacher as well, which is really interesting. Okay, so I'm going to try and understand our fixed mindset a little bit better, because in order to develop our growth mindset, we have to see what gets us into a fixed mindset state. What is our trigger? Okay, unless we identify what our triggers are, we're never going to change. We're just going to do what we've always done. So it's not about pulling out people's weaknesses or anything like that. It's just about identifying where we can make changes. So I'm going to give you a puzzle to do. I'm going to give you, it's quite a simple puzzle. All I want you to do is spend 5 minutes looking at this puzzle. You can do it however you want. Okay, I'll show you the puzzle so you get an idea. So the puzzle is, can you move 4 matchsticks to create 6 squares instead of 5? Okay, so all I want you to do is, on your piece of paper, in your head, however you want, can you solve my puzzle? Like I said, I've got 5 minutes. I'm going to get my timer up on my phone. I promise I'm not texting. And then we'll see how you've got on. So your time starts now. If anyone does work it out before the timer, just let us know through the chat. So 4 minutes has gone. Okay, we're approaching 3 minutes. Now, I know you're all really intelligent people, so I'm expecting a few of you to be letting me know you've got it done soon. Okay, I've got 2 minutes left. Okay, so Alice thinks she might have a solution. Not sure it ties in with my 4 matchsticks, Alice, but I like your thinking. So we've got 50 seconds left. So Claire, do you think you've got a solution? Claire's wondering whether she's got a solution. She's thinking, maybe I have, maybe I have. Okay, there's your 5-minute timer up. Okay, right. This is the bit where usually what myself and Liz do in this section is we look really carefully at your behaviour in this section. Now, obviously, we can't see everybody. Some of you have chosen to stay off the video, which is absolutely fine. So just seeing some of the body language from some of you. There was definitely a lot of heads in hands and fingers up near foreheads. And frantic writing, but what I don't know what was going on, and what else usually happens is people usually say things. They say what they're thinking because we're in a room together and it's quite safe, whereas on here no one wants to say a word. They just want to get on with it. So this is where I need you to be really, really honest. No judgments being made. This is just trying to look at what generates a fixed mindset. So what I want you to do with your best honesty as you possibly can you type into the comments what was going on in your head? What was your inner dialogue saying to you while you were doing that activity? So just type into the comments and we'll just see what sorts of things have been mentioned. Oh, Phil, we need to send you a little box, don't we? Let's wait for a couple more, see if there's anyone else. Yeah. Okay, so really interesting. Thankfully, no one chose any swearing. You've kept it all really polite, but I bet that went through some of your heads, a bit of swearing. But yeah, some of you straight away that self-belief, I'm no good at this. Whereas some of you thinking, well, actually, that bit doesn't work. I'm going to try something else instead. Jasmine, you mentioned about the time, which is really interesting. Because what I did at the beginning was totally on purpose. So at the beginning, I said to you, I've got a simple puzzle. All I want you to do is this, okay? So really subtly already setting the bar and saying to you, this is going to be dead easy. You shouldn't have any problem with it. Because what I wanted with the hope that some of you were going to be thinking, oh my God, I can't actually do this. And Gemma said it's easy. Okay, I also put the timer, so I said you've only got 5 minutes, okay, but that should be plenty of time, okay, again to add that added pressure. And some ways maybe you're starting to go, ooh, I do this in my classroom, okay, where you say I'm going to give you 5 minutes for this, okay, or whether you say this should be pretty easy for you, okay, or you're in year 6 now, this should be okay for you. So giving those subtle judgments already set the tone, and for some people that will trigger their fix because already they're under pressure, okay, which is where we get this inner dialogue thinking, oh, my time's running out, I can't do this, and also I'm asking you to perform in front of other people. Now, Was it Alice? Yeah, Alice said she thought she had a solution. Claire then came in a couple of seconds later thinking she might have a solution. I wonder if anybody thought at that point when I said, oh, Alice thinks she's got one, Claire's got a solution. Did anybody think at that point, I really hate Alice and Claire right now? Okay, yeah, we're polite and we're professional. I'm sure we didn't. But again, we do that in class as well, don't we? Oh, Jimmy's done it. Well done, Jimmy. Give Jimmy a round of applause. And everyone's going to hate Jimmy now. Yeah. So just be really wary about how we interact and how and what we say as well. So also sort of reiterating that issue that how I deliver things, how I behave and what I say impacts on your mindset. As subtly as it was, it had an impact on some of you. Okay. So would you like to see the solution? Yes. Sometimes people go, no, and we've had people stick their fingers in their ears and all sorts. So we just thought we'd check. So if you don't want to see the solution, look away now. But this is the solution if it works. So I've just taken away the number 1 was there, number 2 was there, number 3 was there, number 4. So that's my 4 matchsticks have been removed, okay? I'm then going to put them back. So number 1 has now gone in that gap. Number 2 has gone in that, the light bulbs. Yeah. Number 4 has gone in that gap, okay? The other thing that we wanted to show you with this is that even with such a small group that we've got this evening, some of you worked it out, some of you didn't. However, when I go into a classroom, what I believe is every single one of you can work this out. Everybody can work it out. Some of us will just need longer than others. And unfortunately, again, in our profession, everything's at pace in education. We move on, we move on, we move on. Sometimes we don't give children that opportunity to spend the time they need on it, or we jump in too quickly to give them the solution, to save the anguish and the trauma of the challenge that they've been set. So it's just an angle for you just to really see what a fixed mindset can feel like, or for some of you, what a growth mindset can feel like. So again, this is a really important part of developing your growth mindset as a personal journey, not necessarily for children, but for you as a profession. So I want you to just have a look at these questions, and these are just going to be your own personal notes. I'm not going to ask for any feedback on these. So I want to know, how do you respond when you're challenged? That might have been a challenging experience for you, or it might be something different that you can think of. So to answer that question, I want you to think about, well, what do you do? Okay, so what strategies do you have in place when you do feel challenged? How do you feel? And then the second question I want you to think about is, what strategies do you use when you are frustrated? Okay, so just make a couple of notes. Again, I'll give you a bit of time. I won't set my timer this time, but a bit of time just to make yourself some notes. How do you respond when you're challenged? And what strategies do you use when you are frustrated? Okay, so just be finishing off what you're making notes on, and if you feel like you need more time on that, maybe spend a bit more time later. Usually what myself and Liz would do is we would share this with each other and we would talk about it, and it's almost like a bit of a therapy session, but I'm just really conscious of time, so we're not going to do that today, and probably a few of you might be going like this. But actually what it does provide is a really safe way of sharing your emotions with somebody. And as we know, mental health is not talked about enough, and I'm not saying that you've got a mental illness, but when we talk about these emotions, the more we talk about how normal they are and realize that other people are experiencing the same things we are, the more we feel supported in a team. So it's great to do with staff, a really good way, and you can share strategies with each other. But also what it does is it highlights, especially in question 1, about what did you do, how do you respond when you're challenged. Maybe it is a panic, maybe a shout, maybe a scream, maybe I get shaky. Whatever it is, when you respond to a challenge, if you can see where those bits are that need addressing and need changing, now we can make changes. Okay, I start panicking when I see a challenge. So what can I do to stop that from happening? How can I make a change? Okay, we're identifying ways of improving and developing our mindset. Okay, so I'm going to move on. Right, Liz.
Yeah, let me know, Gemma and Dave, if my sound's playing up again.
Yeah, will do.
Yeah, just let me know. I've had a bit of a tinker, but just let me know. Okay. So what we're going to do, we said at the beginning that this is about putting growth mindset back on track. So we're going to look at some of the myths and misconceptions that various areas that we've picked up on since our journey began back in 2016. Okay, so the first thing we did is we began to develop what we call the growth mindset continuum. And the reason we did this was because we felt that social media had stigmatized the concept of mindset quite a lot in terms of the wealth of resources that you could get when you looked out there for your classroom. Very much fixed versus growth. So a lot of the resources you see have one against the other. It was like good versus bad, even to the extent of Darth Vader was against Yoda. We've had that sort of resource coming out through growth mindset. We've got fixed as being red, which is associated with danger. We've got growth as being green and being healthy, that sort of division. Losers against winners, don't do this, do that. So there was we feel like resources have created a negative foundation for developing growth mindset, because by ripping the two mindsets apart and separating the characteristics like has happened, we're also putting people into categories. So if people resonate with the fixed mindset because that's their natural default, they actually see that as them being a bad person. And I've actually been in classes where children, one child in particular in year 4 class, who was shown the characteristics of a fixed mindset, resonated with them, and turned out to his mates as a growth mindset. Okay, so having that split between the mindsets has done a bit of damage, whereas the research and the work of Carol Dweck is actually all a mix of fixed and growth. And it's recognizing when we have a fixed trigger, which then can take us on a journey where we can nudge ourselves to become more growth orientated. Okay, so we felt the continuum was a really important tool to allow children, but adults as well, to understand that. So for example, my fixed trigger, very much so for a long time, was driving. Okay, so I passed my test, a week later I crashed my car, wrote it off, and had a fixed trigger to do with driving. For 14 years, I didn't get behind a wheel again. Okay, but then going into teaching, I then realised I had to drive. So I would put things in place to allow me to do that. So I got myself an automatic car, because when I crashed, I was looking down at the gears. So I put things in place. But if anyone asked me to go on the motorway, I'd be straight at fixed again. Okay, so this is about, right, I've had a fixed trigger. I'm not going to allow it to hold me back. I want to do it. How am I going to do it? I'll try and do it. And it's about nudging ourselves to become more growth, not allowing that fix to stay and define us. Okay, I'm not sure what's wrong with my sound, Gemma, if it's still...
It is still crackling, yeah, just every now and then.
I'll just put this in, just see if that helps. Right, the next thing that we have noticed is displays, and very often we create these displays in our classrooms to reinforce a concept or to introduce something with the children. And over time, it can become wallpaper, like when you're in your lounge and you have a picture, it's just there. Okay, and what we found with growth mindset displays in particular, that some of the messages given on them are actually reinforcing a misconception or magnifying a fixed mindset in itself. So if we look at the one that says change your words, change your mindset, if you think about your brain controls your language, your mindset controls your brain. So really, that is the wrong way round. Unless you change your mindset first and think in a more growth-orientated way, you're not going to change your words, because you will naturally default to your natural setting, which for many people is their fixed mindset. So actually, the title is the wrong way round. It should be change your mindset, change your words. It's just very subtle, but it's that understanding of what growth mindset really is. The next one, do you have a growth mindset? Again, categorizing fixed and growth, you're either one or the other. And if I was there looking at all the fixed and I had a fixed mindset predominantly, I'd be saying I'm growth, because I wouldn't want to look bad. Okay, so it's really important that we get that foundational message out there really early on, that you're not one or the other. The other one at the bottom is actually an online test that you can do to see which mindset you are. So it's an online test that you can click on a few answers, and that one itself again differentiates the two mindsets. We've never done questionnaires at the beginning of any of our training to do with fixed and growth mindset, because very often people put down what they want you to hear and not necessarily their true answers to do with mindset. So that's one of the big misconceptions that we can try to overpower. This one is a really good one. Power of yeah. I'm sure if you've looked into mindset, this is a biggie. It's a CVC world used across the country, and we totally agree that when you have a fixed trigger, for example, I don't get this. If you put I don't get this yet at the end of the sentence, then suddenly you are releasing the cap on your ability. Because it's that it's not that you'll never get it, you're just not there yet. You're going to need time to get there. But what we found with a lot of children is once they adopt the power of yet in terms of using that word, it just seems to end there, as if the power, that word yet, is a magic wand, and they just have to say it, and then they'll have the skill and ability, and it will happen. The actual power isn't in the word yet, it's in the action you take between attempts. So between one attempt and another attempt is where the power is. It's that action, not in the word yet. And very often the children don't understand what that actually is. Okay, so there's a big misconception there about using this word yet. So as parents, as teachers, we need to scaffold, role model, and discuss that process in between one attempt and the other. So eventually they will get there. Or else you'll just have children 1 week saying, I don't get this yet. And then the week after, they're still saying, I don't get this yet, because they've not done anything in between. Okay, so the power of yet has been one that a lot of people have grasped onto. The next one is all about belief. And one of the things that we've noticed on a lot of social media is growth mindset can be a bit clappy, a bit happy clappy, and it's all about being positive with positive affirmations, and then you'll develop a growth mindset school. Similarly, with the power of yet, belief alone will not create growth. Okay, and it's about all the things, the ingredients that go with that belief. Yes, we need to believe we can get there, but it's the feedback, it's making the mistakes and learning from them, it's the raising the bar with challenge, putting in the effort, trying different strategies, all that action in between that will allow you to do the achieve. Okay, but believing in yourself is really important. That's the cherry on the cake, but you need the action to be able to believe as well. And a lot of people have talked solely about just believe in yourself, you can do this. Okay, and it's not just about the word. Okay, how do we want to do it, Gemma? Do we want to?
We just finish these little bits and then we'll tie up.
Right, okay. The learning pit is another popular visual, and we think it's a really important visual, especially for children that when they're faced with a challenge or they have struggle, they enter into that pit, okay? But very often the learning pit at the other end is at the same height as they've gone in, okay? So they're learning to be an effective resource. The bit at the end where they exit the pit should be higher than where they come in. If they're entering and exiting at the same time, they're actually not using new skills to get out. That pit has to be at a higher level. And that's something we've seen quite a lot in schools, and it's become a bit of wallpaper that's maybe not discussed, so the true meaning of it isn't really understood by the children in the class. Okay, but it is a nice one. Okay, the next one is praise. Okay, so another misconception is that it's largely a matter of praising effort. Praising is really important, but it's in the growth and the progress that children make, rather than who they are or what they did. It's how they did it. So if we're saying things like, great work, you're so clever, you're a natural at this, that isn't praising growth, okay? And that could actually magnify a fixed mindset in a child. I haven't got time to go into the clever labels that we've come across, but praising effort is important, but it's the effort that goes into the growth that the child has made. So taking it away from, it's about the processes of learning and making it that intrinsic motivation rather than the result and the output at the end. We want to try to avoid praising. I'm just going through this a bit quicker now because we haven't got that much time left. The next one,
we just go to, if we just go to our top tips, Liz.
Yeah.
Go there and then leave it at that. We'll give people details if they want to find out some more.
Yeah, definitely. So we've put these top tips together in terms of developing a growth mindset journey for yourself, but also for your school. The first one is always start with your staff first. Okay, so that's, I think we've made that foundation for learning has to start with staff to be able to role model. Don't approach it as fixed or growth. We are all a mix of both, and it's about getting friendly with your fixed, which is where the magic happens. Okay, so don't ban the fixed mindset. That is a really important part of the journey. Okay, the development of language is imperative, much so for the teachers involved in their approach to the children and their learning. Praising the progress and not the outcome, and involving the community. So it's a collaborative from reception to year 6. It involves all the TAs, the teachers, the office staff, and parents are a massive part as well. Okay.
Okay, so I'll just stop sharing. We did have so much more we wanted to share. Sorry, we just ran out of time. Obviously, myself and Liz have got a website. We've got an email address. I'm just going to bob my phone number in there as well. There is lots of things on our website that can help you and support you if you're starting your growth mindset journey or just wanting some things to top up your journey. But also, if you've got questions or anything you want to ask us, please do get in touch with us, and we can help you in any way, shape or form that is physically possible. But thank you very much for your interaction tonight. We've loved speaking with you, and good luck. Over to you, Phil.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm still puzzling out with the matchstick. I've got matchsticks now, so I'm still trying to work it out. Hopefully I'll get to complete that before bedtime tonight. But thank you very much indeed. I forgot to mention, but Dave did put it in the chat, that this has been recorded and is available on our YouTube video. And if you didn't see that, if you just scroll back through the chat, that's there alongside Gemma and Liz's website and information details there. If you want to speak, join us tomorrow for resilience coaching, or with me on Friday for future schooling, and with Katie, who's been with us today on student welfare and well-being at the beginning of August. You're very, very welcome. But that's been a really informative session, and I think the fear of failure is my biggest worry with children these days, that they seem to be petrified of failing. And I think if you implement just one or two of those strategies, you will really enable children to grow in confidence and their self-esteem. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Dave, for driving the technology, which apart from Liz's sound seemed to hold together pretty well. So I'm not quite sure. It was okay. It kind of got there. It wasn't too bad. But thank you very much indeed, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.